I think it might be helpful for people that come across this to just get as much time as you would like to give to describe the journey here to New York, how you got here, what the plan was when you got here, what you remember about that initial time.
Yeah, so I've had a very strange journey to New York in some ways. I didn't think I was going to come to New York. It wasn't in my plan originally, but I was at Boston College, undergrad. I studied English and psychology. And I always had this plan, including in high school, to combine English and psychology into some sort of like writing field. So thinking of like writers like Meg Jay or Brene Brown, kind of like Malcolm Gladwell, those types of books. So I did my high school thesis on that, actually, which is kind of funny looking back on it. But I always wanted to be a writer my whole life. I've always been interested in psychology and mental health. Studied it in college. Was planning on going down that path. Was accepted to Columbia for my MSW. Cool. So I was going to go right into school there. And I was taking a creative nonfiction class. And it was kind of like, senior year. It's for fun. It was like this amazing professor. And she had a prompt that spoke to me. I wrote an essay, and she said, you should submit this to the New York Times Modern Love column. And they had a contest going on for college students. So I was like, this is not going to happen, but that's really nice of her. Like, sure, I'll just submit it. And then once I submitted it, though, I was kind of like, oh, I want this. And it a little bit like irrationally, because I was like, there's no shot you actually get this. It was like a 0.01% chance of being being accepted. And I kept researching. I was like, oh my gosh, like really anxious for an email. And the essay I wrote was about my sister who passed away. And it was about how grief has changed with technology. So how grief has changed in the digital age when you have Instagram active, Facebook active, a phone number you can call. And just like the weirdness of that, sometimes like the beauty of that, just the whole new nature of it. And I found out on my sister's birthday week that I won the contest. So things changed for me kind of overnight. I still had like 2 months for graduation to just sit there. I couldn't tell anyone I'd won. So I was like, I knew my life was changing, but not maybe as drastically as it did. But then the essay came out my senior week of college. So I'm like on boat cruises, like, it's like a big party week. And I'm getting calls from agents and movie producers and crazy stuff. And basically was offered the opportunity to write a book based on the essay. So that kind of is part of what drew me to New York. I put my MSW on hold for a year, worked in a magazine, and got a book deal that fall with HarperCollins, the end goal, but originally it was Hachette.
I think you just said this, that you've always considered yourself a writer. You always wanted to be a writer. How did you know that growing up? I mean, what do you remember about that wiring in you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I loved books before I could read books. Like, I was like in preschool. I remember making like little fake books out of cardboard, construction paper, and like string, and asking my mom to laminate them for me at Staples. And so I loved the process of like holding a book and being immersed in a story. I wasn't a great reader when I was little. So like I remember being in like first grade, we were moving around a lot as a family and changing school districts all the time. I went to second grade and I wasn't a great reader, and I didn't like that. So I would just take the biggest book from the shelf, and I was like, I'm going to just master this. So I read a lot of inappropriate books by accident. I was crying over like Tuck Everlasting in second grade. Like it was a lot, but it taught me how to read. And then I just loved it. I became just so enamored with it, and kind of has been a lifelong love. It's cheesy to say, but it's true.
The moment when you won that essay contest and you started getting all those inbound leads for potential opportunities, I think a lot of people who want to move to New York they're very curious about how to make that work financially. What's that story about how you were able to justify moving to a place that's one of the most expensive places in the world? Was the offer enough to know that you had time to write and live at the same time?
Yeah, that's a great question. No. It was a leap of faith for sure. And I think maybe the kind of leap of faith you make at 22 when you're not informed about these things. I graduated college. I had some savings from like summer jobs, that kind of thing. And I got a job at a magazine. So I didn't come here without a job lined up. I wasn't like thinking I was going to be full-time writing. I got an agent that summer. I signed with her, and we got together like an 80-page proposal for a book deal. But we didn't submit until that fall. So I was already in the city by September, working at this magazine, making terrible money. Magazines paid you nothing.
Yeah.
Like I was making like $38K. Like it was bad. But I got the book deal in November, Thanksgiving. So I knew then that money was going to come eventually. But the way books deals work is they give you like 3 installments usually. One is upon signing, one is upon delivery of the manuscript, and the third is when you actually publish the book. So that first sum was substantial, but I didn't have it until, I want to say like the following September.
Yeah.
Just paperwork takes so long. Publishing is so slow. So there was a lot of time of me just like really being scrappy, I guess, and hoping for the best and hoping it worked out.
When you're making $38,000 in New York, and obviously like you're a young woman, like what do you remember about how you made that work? Did you feel poor, or was that not really that big of a deal?
I think all my friends were in the same boat, so it felt pretty normal. I remember I was just like doing a lot of like, you know, stealing snacks from the office. Like I'd be like, I got some bananas for the week, I got some oatmeal packets, and like we're good. So there's stuff like that. But for the most part, I was lucky not to have student loans at that point. So I was like in a privileged position in some ways. I didn't have like debt staring me down.
When you started to write the book, which I recently read, talk about the process of the discipline, the ritual, the thinking that went into how to make it. I assume you're still working while you're writing this book. Correct me if I'm not right about that, but how did you think about the structure required to actually finish that project?
Yeah, it's a great question too. So I was working during that time. I did a lot of editing on the subway. So I would go to work. I would use their industrial printer to print pages. I was not a good employee. My number one advice to writers is be a bad employee.
Yeah.
Something's got to give, and it's not going to be your personal project. So yeah, you know, screw the man a little bit. It's fine. So I was not a good employee. I would print out my pages at work, edit in the bathroom sometimes. I would edit on the subway going home. I had a seat. I would go to the gym after work sometimes and go on the treadmill and walk and edit. Like it was hard to find the time. And there were sacrifices. I mean, a lot of weekends I canceled plans with friends. I wasn't, you know, I really had to kind of dive deep to make the time for it because it wasn't being given to me, right? The project was so important to me that I had that momentum. And I also had the luxury of like knowing I had a book deal. So that was encouraging. But I did get to a point when I had the COVID happen my first year in New York. So that March I went home and things got like a little more flexible to work from home. Less eyes on me at least. So I could be an even worse employee. So sorry guys, but it's true. So that helped. Unfortunately for me, it's like a bad way to look at it. But then I was probably my breaking point at that point, being like, I can't do both anymore. It's just too much.
How much time between when you signed to write the book and needing to produce the manuscript, do you remember how much time you had? And talk to me about how you thought about achieving that objective.
Yeah. So I had 8 months. So I got the book deal that Thanksgiving, and I had to deliver it, I think, that September. So maybe it was August, but it was pretty quick turnaround. So I knew I had a time crunch. I love a deadline. So now that I don't have that, I give myself deadlines because I do think it's helpful to have like some fire, even if it's manufactured. But yeah, it was a lot of sacrifice just to get that done. And the book itself was not an easy process. I teach memoir writing, as you know now. So I have a lot of students who are doing that, and they're like, oh, I'm feeling like I'm getting sick more easily. My immune system's down, or I can't sleep, or I'm like, it's not work you can just get into and get out of. It's really intense work. So a lot of that was hard too. And I found myself being like, I don't want to be at a crowded bar because I don't want to be people touching me. Like it was a very physical process, strangely.
When you signed for the book, did they have a minimum page count they were requiring from you? How does that work in terms of what they're looking for in the finished product?
Yeah, so they do in the contract, I think, have 80,000 words.
Okay.
So I think it's an estimate. I don't think I would have gotten in trouble if I was like 78,000. But I think they do estimate that based on like what you project. And that's a pretty normal book size. It's like 300 something pages, low 300s.
When are the best hours of the day for you to write? I don't know if generally you found like a sweet spot. If you could craft a perfect day, when you're writing something like the book you did to be peaking for a certain section of that day in order to get the most out of yourself. How do you think about that?
I think that I can do mornings to like 7 p.m. probably. I need time to get into it. So usually I will read something I love before I write. It just helps me get in the mindset, I think. Then once I'm in it, it's kind of like that deep work and you lose track of time. I don't write at night anymore. I learned that the hard way. In my first book, I was writing after work a lot and I couldn't sleep. I have insomnia sometimes. So I would it's hard for me to get out of that mindset. So I need like more decompression time.
Would love to talk about the publication of the book itself, getting it done, what you remember from that time.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think the book is extremely personal. It is extremely personal. I'm sure you went back and probably talked to your family, went through your own notes. I know you have sections of the book that have your own journaling in it. Getting it to the finish line, I don't know if anything comes to mind for you about how difficult that was, if it was easier, harder than you remember to actually get the 80,000 words in. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I think it was definitely hard to get out. It's very personal, like you said. And I think I was talking to one of my classes about this recently, that so much the work of writing a book happens kind of off screen, right? Or off page. You're not seeing it. It's a lot of research, like you said, looking at documents, piecing together memories. It's a lot of introspective work, trying to figure out what you even think about the subject. A lot of long walks. That always helps me to kind of think through a problem. So it was a lot of that. And I think I was surprised by, not that it came easily to get done, but the passion I felt for it. And I've been waiting my whole life for someone to kind of like take a chance on me, it felt like, or someone to say like, you have talent or you can do this. And it's my dream my whole life. So when someone dangled that in front of me, and it's a company like HarperCollins and I had a great agent, someone says like, you need to do this. I was kind of like, go, 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 go. And almost like everything else fell to the wayside. The writing part was easy to prioritize. Relationships, everything else, health, is harder. Yeah.
I remember you saying when I heard you at the writing workshop that I think when you got the opportunity to write it, you said something very similar about how you knew you had something to say, that it was important for you to convey in words what you had experienced. What, if you had to boil it down, what was it that you primarily wanted to put to page that you thought would be good for the world, would be good for you?
Yeah, that's another great question. So when I had the essay come out in the New York Times, in the Modern Love column, it was about, again, like grief. And my sister committed suicide. She had traumatic brain injury. She has schizophrenia, mental health diagnoses. There was so much of the story that I just didn't get into because I think there was so much stigma. Even having her story out there at all was really scary for my family. It wasn't like an easy thing. We were scared of like online sleuths investigating things. We were scared of stigma. We were just scared of people looking at Kate differently, my sister, and viewing her life differently. A lot of protection, I think. And when the essay came out and that first bubble was kind of shattered, I was like, okay, we touched about grief. We touched about suicide like a little bit. People were really, kind, and people had their own stories to share. And it was such a, I guess, like spiritual, process to have people come to me and say how much it meant to them. And I knew in my heart that I wasn't being honest about the story, that there was so much I didn't get into because I was still afraid.
Yeah.
At that point in my life, my two roommates, my best friends, knew I had a sister, but most of the school I went to didn't know. I was going in trying to be like somebody I wasn't, trying to act like I hadn't had tragedy touch my life. I was so scared of being looked upon as damaged, or it's so silly now, but that's what I thought in my 22-year-old brain. So it was to have the essay out there, people know I had a sister and I lost her. And then to be like, oh, I didn't even do her the justice of telling the full story. And that's when I wanted to write the book, to say here's what happened. Here's what happens when you have traumatic brain injuries. Here's what happened when you have schizophrenia. Here's my sister, this beautiful model, this popular, smart, such an idealistic person in so many ways. And then here's this mental illness and what it took from her. And I think we talk about mental health a lot in our society, and depression and anxiety, but we don't talk about psychosis and hallucinations and these really scary, hard to talk about subjects. So once I had a platform, I was like, I have to get this out in the world, and I want to share this story, even if it does still scare me sometimes.
Yeah. I know this is your older sister, 5 or 6 years older, something like that.
Exactly.
What do people not understand about, I don't know if mental illness is the right question or just, it is terrifying. I mean, a lot of your stories are wild about what you went through and what you saw. What do you think people should know that's important to convey about the experience of living with somebody with schizophrenia, or misconceptions that you still see about people who are really struggling with that?
Yeah, I think a big thing is that it can happen to anyone. I think our mental health and our brains are kind of precarious, and that's not a great message to send, but there's so much othering in our society. I think we see that all the time. I mean, we both live in New York, but you walk by a homeless man in the subway and he's ranting and he's saying something that is clearly a delusion of some sorts. We're running away. Like, you're changing subway cards. You don't want to be near that person. And that's okay, because that is scary. You don't know what they're going to do, or you don't. But that stigma, again, I think, of like just being like, okay, like, well, that's not me, thank God, and kind of pushing people to the fringe when they're experiencing that is really harmful. And I just don't think we understand a lot of these things fully yet. How they happen, just traumatic brain injuries in general, the brain. A lot of this is like very new science, I would say. So I think it's just approaching it with compassion and empathy, and not being, so afraid of it that you don't approach it. I think we tend to like be afraid of what we don't understand.
And I think, your sister, from the description of her, especially when she was such a young person, she's like Miss Americana in so many ways, like comes from a seemingly pretty stable family, beautiful young woman, intelligent, very popular. That, I think that's a good way to put it, that when you're on the New York subway system and you see people that are wildly psychotic, it is very easy to think like that could never be me or someone that I know. How do you think about that now? I mean, when you encounter, I know you're a therapist, like when you are traveling the city or you deal with patients, I have to imagine that's really helped with your empathy to some degree, but I'm curious if it changes in some other way the way you look at people who are really struggling with severe mental illness, in the sense that like it's latent in all of us and it's just luck, or you talk about free will to some degree in the book as well, and whether people like to think they have so much control over who they end up becoming. And so much of life is random and not fair. That's a bit of a ramble, but I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that general subject.
Yeah, I think I can kind of not be a hypocrite about it, but I think there is a degree in which me as a clinician, I don't work with that population as much. And I did at a time. In undergrad, I was worked at a group home, women with severe mental illnesses. So most of them had schizophrenia and they were in their 50s and they were living there long term. It was like a long-term solution for them. They were amazing. I think with some of these illnesses, they get these brain-based disorders, they get, sometimes better in the older years. So like they kind of like sense that a little bit. So they were not like my sister in a lot of ways. They were like really calm, really gentle creatures. And I loved them. And I think I almost like loved them too much. Like I kept looking at them and I would see my sister. I realized like, oh, I'm not helping them because I'm so emotionally invested. I would leave after my shift and just like, I can't stop thinking that they're okay. And I was realizing that kind of, we call it countertransference in the mental health field, when you are putting your own experiences on a client. And I realized then that I was like, I don't know if I can assist this population because I'm too tied to it. So now when I see clients, a lot of them are dealing with, maybe like a loved one who's experiencing it, kind of like I was, or anxiety, mental health, depression issues. But I kind of feel like with that, it's just too close to home. I think I'm better served being like an advocate for it in my writing.
Yeah. What are you proudest of about the book? I think it's been out for a couple of years. Like what makes you proud about it?
Yeah. So I, as you know, I teach memoir writing. So it's funny now because I know a lot more. And I tell my students all the time too, that I'm like, because they all want to read the book, which is so sweet of them. And I'm like, but don't do what I did. Like I'm telling you things that are easier or better. And there's so much in the writing that I would change. I mean, I was 22. I had no experience writing a book. It was very raw. I understand there's things that aren't perfect about it. I think I kind of love that too, though, that it's very brave. I still look back on it now, and like the person who's writing it feels a little more distant from me. And I'm like, that was a really brave, scary thing to do at 22 years old. So I give myself a lot of grace with that. I'm very proud that people have been touched by it, that it has helped them with their own experiences, or they have no experiences. They've learned something from it. The cover is a picture of my sister modeling. And cover conversations were, always a little testy. Doesn't come together naturally all the time. So that was kind of my idea. And I got the rights to the picture and everything. And it's a beautiful photo of her. And I'm just so proud when I see it on a bookshelf because it's her picture and it's her. And I'm so proud people get to know her through those words and that her memory lives on.
I think that's how culture changes is by people having the courage to talk about things that are super uncomfortable. I think that's one of the great things about podcasting, frankly, is people having a vehicle through which they can share stories like the one you did in your book. After the book came out, and I don't even really know what you're up to these days, but do you still consider yourself a full-time writer? What are you doing day in and day out? What's the future of your writing career look like if you had to paint that picture?
Yeah, so I see my life in like 3 kind of career pillars, but I am a practicing psychotherapist. So I see some clients. I keep my client caseload pretty low. So like 15 clients is kind of my sweet spot. I write most of the day. I also teach. So I teach twice a week at Gotham Writers in the city. And then I'm also starting a graduate program at Boston College. So I don't know how much I can actually say about it because it's not official yet, but we're designing it right now, me and a few different professors there. And it should be up and running like fall 2026. And it's a program for clinicians, for psychology people, for people who have interest in psychology and writing. So it's kind of like my dream come true. I'm obsessed with it. So I'll be teaching there eventually as well. So I think like teaching feels so beautiful and right for me. I think therapy feels right for me. And then the writing component. My new book is a novel and it's coming out next summer. So summer 2026. And I'm working on my next project that will be hopefully the following summer. So it's fiction now, which is different. And I love it. It's much more fun. But they still have mental health themes in them. And that feels really important to me to kind of combine that writing and psychology still. Yeah.
What can you tell us about the forthcoming novel, if anything?
Yeah, it's fun. I guess, like, if you read my first book, it's a downer, which I love. It's good. But this one, it's definitely lighter. It's kind of like a beach read-ish, but the character struggles with panic disorder. So I talk about mental health and that. It's a mother-daughter story. It's about like the mother's like romantic life, the daughter's romantic life. It's kind of Gilmore Girls vibes. It's set on Nantucket, where my family is from. My mom's lived there for 10 years. So it's very personal to me in a different aspect. I think balancing, like the tragedy and the lightness too. And I think that I'm like kind of coming to that perfect medium where I feel like I'm getting into interesting subjects like grief still in my writing, but I'm also talking about happier stuff or, romantic relationships or friendships. And that feels really true as well.
I don't know how you would think about this, but, it sounds like you have a very cool setup where you have a professional job where I'm sure that is really helping to live in New York. And then you still have this creative outlet for yourself where who knows where that'll go, but you still have a way to express yourself and kind of do what you want to do.
Yeah.
For people that are coming to New York for the first time, that want to be here, they think they have some talent, they've gotten some encouragement in that direction in their life. Would you generally encourage that model of like moonlighting, of securing financial security or at least some degree of an income first? How do you think about that?
So I think my main thing is I think you have to go for it. You have to pursue it. I think for me, I'm a very cautious person and can be very insecure about my creative abilities. So if I didn't have that lottery ticket of the New York Times Modern Love column, I'm not sure I would have gotten here. I always wanted to get here, but it would take me years longer. I would have gone to get my PhD, then write a book. Or I think it's really easy to doubt yourself and you want someone to give that to you and say like, you have it. Here's your thumbs up. You might get that. You might not. You might get that, then they take it away. And they say, then everyone else says you suck. So I think there's so much you have to like, it sounds so cheesy again, but you have to like believe in yourself. You have to give yourself permission to take it seriously, take your craft seriously, and know that you deserve to have your writing out there. There's room for you. People are so doomsday about publishing. Publishing is what pays my bills to this day. I do other things, like the writing, the teaching, and therapy is almost for fun. Like my book money is my money, my income. So there's money out there. Like, go for it. Like, you should pursue this. And, you know, whatever makes you feel better being stable, I think when you are putting the financial pressure on, it's your only means of survival, it kind of can take some of the joy away from it. So if you want a full-time job, if you want a part-time job, whatever works for you, do it. There's no right way to go about it. But don't sell yourself short.
I'm surprised to hear you say that there's money in book publishing.
People are shocked.
What do people not know about it? I don't know how much detail you can go into, but I'm sure people would be curious to learn more about that comment.
Yeah. You know, it does depend on like the deal, and like my first deal is way bigger than my second deal. I think it's just last year as I had attention on me, but still, like, you can make a decent income, and there are sacrifices you might have to make too, and lifestyle choices. But at the end of the day, it's not like there's no money at all in it. And I think publishing and the arts in general can get really catty or competitive, or just, you know, like there's that scarcity mindset. Yeah. And I've had a lot of my students in my classes who are like, "Oh, I never thought I was good." I'm like, "You are good. Like, who told you weren't?" And it's like a teacher or somebody who maybe didn't make it, and they discourage somebody. And I think like there's room for everybody. We need stories out there. It's not a limited commodity. You know, there is room for everybody to kind of get out there and say what they need to say.
If you get this is just a general question, but for people that do end up getting a contract with a known New York publishing house, what's the floor somebody could expect in terms of like a book deal? I know nothing about this world. Like, what, I don't know if you have any insight on this, but I imagine you might, given your experience. What's the range for a first-time author if they do secure a contract? What can they expect, roughly speaking? Yeah,
so I think, there's the big five publishers, right? So if you're getting a big five deal, it's like HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, those type of deals, paying a Random House, they will probably pay you a little more than like an independent press will. So that's going to depend on that too. The best advice I would give people is to do Publishers Marketplace. And I think it's kind of expensive. I think it's like $50 a month. So maybe just do it for like 1 month and cancel it. Yeah. But if you go there, you see all the deals being made. You can search by editor, by agent, by author, and you can see pretty much what they're making. And there's like a code, and it's like something silly like a nice deal, a good deal, a very good deal, like an excellent deal, like something like that. Or major deal is the biggest one. And you can look that up, and it's like, one is maybe like 50 to 99 or, and one's like over six figures. And you can see that correlation. I think that's hard to get transparency with that stuff. So that's the easiest way I can see, like, just search through like books you like and what they're actually making. Yeah.
I don't know if you've had conversations with these publishers about it. Are they, like with startup investing, are they looking for the next Uber? Like, is that the game of looking for these like super linear returns? So they're making a bunch of bets in a bunch of different categories to get the next J.K. Rowling? Is that about right?
Yeah, I think most authors don't outmake their advances. So the majority of authors will not see royalty checks. So they kind of rely on like those big hitters to return those investments for them. That being said, there is like a kind of a thing in the industry where being young, being like, not even young, but being like your first book, like a debut author, and then like you smash it out of the park and you're, now you're Stephen King, whatever. That is idealized, and they do want that. It's very glamorized. And they say it's hard to get a book deal as you keep going. They say that. There's so many examples of writers who have just been persevering. Their first book did okay. Second book did okay. Third book did okay. Fourth book, huge. So it's like the industry, like, I would say like rumor is that you need to be like that debuted author, be very splashy. It's not the reality. I think, I look at the authors who have like really long standing careers. It's a game of just perseverance. It's like a game of resiliency, and like, who's the last one standing? Who's going to keep trying? Yeah. So... yeah, it's confusing.
Are there like fads of subjects that you're noticing are really popular and more likely in terms of the theme of the book to get a deal, like positive pop psychology would be a theme. I don't know if you're noticing right now a certain kind of book that's really having its moment.
Yeah, it's romantasy.
What is that?
You don't know what romantasy
No.
is? Oh my God, I'm going to sound like a creep. It's romantic fantasy.
Okay.
It's like the fairy smut.
Okay.
But that's big right now. Like A Court of Thorn and Roses. Have you heard of that book? Okay. I'm
Are these
feeling
for
crazy.
women?
These are for women.
Yeah.
Someone listening might understand me. But it's like that kind of genre is huge, and a lot of writers are doing that. It's a big thing. It's a big moneymaker. It's kind of like the YA thing that happened a while ago with like dystopian novels. Like you got The Hunger Games, Divergent, like all those books back to back. I would say this feels similar to that right now. But there's always a moment. There's always something that happens. I think fads are interesting, and I think it's cool to be the first one, but I wouldn't pay attention too much to that.
A couple last questions for you. So if somebody, I mean, it sounds like you had this incredible trajectory where all of a sudden you are, after the publication of your essay, you're getting all this interest. Most people don't have that experience. Given that that's the case, what advice would you give to someone that has not yet had that home run where they're now getting inbound inquiries from agents to try to break into the networks, the people that can really make their career start to move?
So I would say start with something that you know can get published. So I think you might have like your book length project, which is great. Keep going with that. If you have an essay or you have a short story or something else you can get out there faster, publish. I mean, agents love to see that. Like agents love to see you have a history of any kind of publishing. Just going to journals. Poets and Writers is a great resource. So if you go on their website, they have like everyone accepting submissions right now, different literary journals, different magazines, that kind of stuff. Just get a win. I think wins matter.
Yeah.
I think knowing that like you can get something small out there, then you maybe feel more confident in your book length project too.
Last question for you. Relatedly, if you were to talk to your 22-year-old self or someone like you who's moving here for the first time, who has some talent, who has some drive, they want to make it as a writer in New York, what else would you encourage them to think about? What advice would you give them that might be helpful in their career?
Ooh, that's good. I don't know. I don't think in any way, shape, or form you have to be in New York. I think New York is really expensive.
Yeah.
So I think like if you can save money and not do that, maybe you should. If you are here, I think, taking advantage of what the city has to offer, going to, book launches. Most book launches are free to the public or they're $5. Going to talks, meeting people. If you go to your, it's pretty accessible. Like you can go to like 92nd Y, or you can go to like, McNally Jackson and go to your favorite author's book launch or book talk and then talk to them. Ask them how they did it. Ask them for advice. It's scary to put yourself out there, but we've all been there. We've all been in your shoes. So don't be afraid to kind of reach out and ask for help.
Yeah. I know you said McNally Jackson, the 92nd Street Y. I know the Strand bookstore in Union Square has a ton of events. The Barnes & Noble near Union Square has a lot of author events. Anywhere else that you would recommend? Obviously, I met you at the P&T Knitwear. Yeah. What else are, sort of like New York secrets that people might want to consider?
Books are magic. I love. So that's in Cobble Hill. And one of my best friends, who I'm seeing tonight, is the publicity events person there. So she runs some cool stuff. That they have really good stuff too there, and it's usually smaller and it's very quaint. It's just a fun place to be.
Cool. Thanks so much for doing this. Great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You got it.